Hello everyone. In this video, I want to talk about something we almost never question: how time is measured. We usually think of time as something that simply exists, and clocks as tools that reveal it more or less accurately. But what if that assumption is incomplete? What if time, as we measure it, depends on how we measure it? On resolution, on protocol, and on the act of observation itself. In this video, I'll show how changing the resolution of a clock can change the time it reports, why differences we call error can represent actual deviations in time itself. This will take us from classical timekeeping into quantum measurement and to a non-gravitational way of thinking about time dilation. Nothing here requires extreme speed or massive gravity, only careful measurement. Time deviance through resolution works like this. Every clock, whether it's a pendulum, a quartz crystal, or a lattice of ultra-cold atoms, operates at a specific temporal granularity. A grandfather clock might resolve time to the second. An atomic clock down to 10 to the minus 18 seconds or better. But here's what most people miss. When you compare two clocks of different resolutions, they don't just disagree on when something happened, they disagree on whether certain events happened at all. Consider two processes measured by two clocks. Clock A ticks every millisecond, clock B every nanosecond. An event that occurs and completes within 500 nanoseconds is, well, invisible to clock A. It didn't happen imprecisely. From clock A's perspective, it exists in a temporal superposition, smeared across its tick interval. Clock B, however, sees it clearly, resolved into a distinct moment. Now, please remember this fundamental point. This isn't measurement error. This is ontological divergence. Different resolutions literally access different layers of temporal reality. And this is the core tenet of our theory. So normally, we say that a clock isn't reading time. It's just counting a physical process that changes in a steady way. That's what we call time. That's the current position. At coarse resolution, meaning measuring large chunks of something, this works. The fluctuations average out, so you don't see the random jitter of individual quantum events, which smooths into a steady, predictable rhythm. The clock behaves classically. Time appears well-defined, flowing uniformly. But as resolution increases, meaning we measure very tiny bits, something unavoidable starts to happen. Suddenly, the act of measurement begins to matter. Every time a clock is interrogated, every time its state is read to mark a moment, that interaction perturbs the system. This is not a technical limitation that better engineering can overcome. It's really a fundamental feature of quantum mechanics. Measurement introduces back action. When you probe a clock at high temporal resolution, you must interact with it frequently, interrogating its state again and again. Each time you read the clock, you slightly disturb the physical process you're using to measure time. By disturb, we mean that reading the clock isn't passive. To read it, you have to interact with it. That interaction happens in the extraction of the information itself. What information? Time is the information. That interaction slightly changes the physical motion or rhythm the clock relies on. So the act of checking the time nudges the process you're using to keep time, even if the effect is very small. The clock and the system it measures become quantum mechanically coupled. The measurement device is no longer a passive observer standing outside the flow of time. It participates in the dynamics it is meant to track. it becomes entangled with what it observes. This is why increasing resolution is not just measuring better, it is measuring differently. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, time passes differently as we get nearer and nearer to the center of this clock. At sufficiently fine scales, the fluctuations you begin to see are not noise leaking into an otherwise perfect measurement. They are genuine quantum dynamics, either pre-existing structure that was simply unresolved at coarser scales, or new dynamics induced by the measurement interaction itself. Time is not simply clearer as we probe it more finely. It becomes more structured, more layered, more entangled with the observer. And critically, that structure cannot be dismissed as experimental error, because there is no deeper, unmeasured, true time to appeal to. You cannot distinguish between these possibilities, because there is no way to observe the system without perturbing it. This is the quantum observer effect, applied to time itself. And this leads to an important consequence. There is no resolution at which time becomes perfectly well defined. The variance grows because you're resolving real quantum noise that was previously hidden, and because you're introducing new disturbances through more frequent measurement. You can't measure your way to perfect precision. You can't eliminate the uncertainty by building a better clock. You just trade one kind of variance for another, and often a larger one. Every increase in resolution constructs a new effective time, with new variance, new back action, new structure that didn't exist or didn't matter at low-res, big, chunky scales. So when you ask, what time is it? The answer depends entirely on what resolution you're asking at. And the finer you probe, the less stable the answer becomes. Not because you're doing it wrong, because that's how time actually works. In the next video, we will discuss how to build an actual working machine that can dilate time. Please share this work with your friends, and you can greatly help us by liking, subscribing, and commenting on this video. These videos take a lot of effort, so every little help will be appreciated. Thank you.